guys, it's Jessica Leichtweisz here back, and I love bringing other professionals to collaborate with. One of the things I think there's a much bigger need for in the field of autism is when professionals come together. So one of the number one questions that parents ask me all the time is about nutrition and about diet specifically related to autism. I've been trained in the behavioral way of getting kids to try new foods, but I'm not a registered dietitian, and I'm not overly qualified in helping parents understand the difference between autism diets and the best diet for their child. So I'm so excited to partner with Jenny Friedman today. She's a registered dietitian, and she is trained specifically in knowing about diets for autism and how to get really picky eaters to try new foods. She works with families virtually and online, and she's going to share some tips with you and answer the question that parents sent in, which is, what is an autism diet and how do I know what to feed my kid with autism? So Jenny, welcome, and thank you so much for helping out our families.
Of course, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. So is there a such thing as an autism diet?
So the short answer is no. There is no one specific diet that somebody on the autism spectrum needs or should be following. So I can get more into that, but the short answer, like I said, is no. There's no one specific autism diet.
Yeah, and parents always ask me, should I have my kid be gluten-free or casein-free, or should kids not eat red foods? I mean, parents ask all these different questions, and I've had parents say one time, well, I can't give my kids any apples because I saw on a blog somewhere kids with autism can't eat red foods. And I'm like, okay, wait, stop. Regroup. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. So there is no one size fits all, but sometimes kids can benefit from different diets. So how would parents know, and how would they figure out if there's something that their child's eating that's affecting their behavior, without obviously knowing this is not a one-size-fits-all prescription for an autism diet?
Yeah, definitely. So you're right that there's definitely no one size fits all. And like any diet and any health condition, you can find any number of recommendations on the internet, and that doesn't, usually they're more anecdotal than, really factual and scientific. So as difficult as it is, you read something and you're so, hungry for something that can help your child feel better. Those likely are not, the right way to approach this. So instead of just finding something and thinking, perfect, I heard gluten's really bad, which, we hear for everything these days, I'm just going to avoid it. I recommend not doing that. So first of all, if you are thinking about going on some sort of special or elimination diet, I really think the first place that you need to look is at your child's current diet. Is there room to take out foods? Does your child, would they be open to accepting new foods? If you switch out their favorite yogurt or chicken nugget brand, is that going to cause a problem? And if it does, is that is the payoff going to really balance out? Is it worth it to try replacing something for the sake of, the possible mayhem that could come with making changes? But if you are knowing, if you are going down that path and trying to see, are there foods that are triggering my child's behavior? I always recommend just keeping a journal, so a food log of what my child's eating, and at what time, what portion, if you can get down to that. And then what are their symptoms? How do they behave immediately after? How do they behave later in the day? Are there any GI issues, like an upset stomach? Do they seem, lethargic or really kind of hyped up? So just keeping a simple log of diet and symptoms is a good way to start tracking your child's specific sensitivities, and they may or may not be there.
Yeah, and kids with autism have a really hard time, often, not all kids, but often have a really hard time trying new foods. And I found that a lot of the kids that I work with are underweight, and as a result have low muscle tone, which can actually compound some of the challenges that come with having autism. And a lot of times they're malnourished. I've had parents tell me over and over, they go to their doctor's appointments and they talk about the children being malnourished. If a child is not eating, it's not always recommended, like you said, to pull out new foods. Pull out the foods they're eating and trying to introduce new foods. In extreme cases, I've even seen parents try that and it results in kids winding up on feeding tubes. So, I mean, and that's obviously not the norm, but I've seen in extreme situations that actually wind up being the case. So it's a really delicate topic. It has to be balanced really carefully. I'm a big believer that if you're going to really have a specific diet, that you probably need to have an actual medical reason for it. You know, if a child truly has an allergy to gluten, wouldn't those things show up in sensitivity tests and blood tests? And Jenny, from your experience, I've found that the kids I work with that truly have those issues, those are things that today in 2020, doctors can actually diagnose that with the right blood tests.
Yeah, exactly. So I do many it's tricky. And yeah, so many allergies are definitely diagnosable. And that is the number one reason why why anyone needs to avoid a certain food. And that is something, and the complication with, in the autism population for a certain, portion of the population is that they maybe can't communicate that they are having an allergic reaction. I've definitely heard of some stories of people, like I hated eating milk when I was growing up, and it turned out, when I was 25, I realized that like I actually had an allergy. So those are things to look out for. And I agree that those are the number one reason when you're thinking about a special diet. What's your, especially like gluten-free, casein-free, which is kind of the one that's out there is like the autism diet most commonly. And that's the one where really, if you're thinking about going, starting that diet, why are you thinking about starting that? Is because you've noticed gluten doesn't agree with your child? Does it cause constipation or diarrhea? Same thing with dairy. If that's the case, then yes, you should, consider avoiding those foods or replacing them with something else. But if you're hoping for a cure, I don't think that diet's going to provide it. And that doesn't mean that food cannot affect how we feel and cannot affect our behavior, but it is unlikely, or, the research really does not support that there's one special diet or that any food or elimination of any food in particular is like a cure or offers a sort of relief.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly said. And as a behaviorist, I work directly with kids. And I've found over and over again, if kids feel good, they tend to learn better. So the kids that, like you said, if they're getting constipated, if they're getting bloating, there'll be physical signs as a parent you can pay attention to, even if the child can't talk about it. But, those kids might benefit. They might benefit more from therapy in the event that they actually feel better while they're learning. But, I've never seen a diet significantly impact a child in terms of all of a sudden the autism is turned around. So I love that advice. Now, Jenny, you have some amazing resources out there for parents who want to get their kids to try new foods, some more information on just the nutrition available to kids with autism. So what's the best way for parents to get that information from you?
Yeah, so the place where I show up most days a week is on Instagram, actually, and over there I'm at autism.nutrionist. I also offer an ebook that's like the most comprehensive place, so you'll definitely see it linked there, of how you can work to introduce new foods, thinking about the environment and exposure and kind of which foods it makes sense to introduce. So it's really focusing on the food aspect, which would be a great complement to kind of your behavioral approaches. So you can find that on my website, which is Jenny Friedman Nutrition, and also via Instagram at autism.nutritionist.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And that is going to be in the links below. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be on the comment section. And as Jenny talked about, I also have a behavioral feeding approach. It is not exclusive. It's something you should be using in complementary with using a registered dietitian's advice about nutrition. So download Jenny's book for sure. But if you also want a sneak peek into how a behaviorist would introduce new foods, and it might just be the complementary might be exactly what your child's looking for, just head over to my website for that ebook. It's justfreakingeatit.com. That is a free fact sheet. You can download it. It'll also have you join my email list so you can get my weekly blog posts and more videos just like this one. So thank you so much, Jenny, for being on here, and thank you to everyone who watched this video. I hope we were able to help your family today.